want to talk about Whoopi Goldberg because I got so many texts this week because she attacked me the week before. Sure. So everybody was like, oh, Bill, I get you're enjoying the karma. First of all, I'm going to talk about this at the end of my show next week, teaser. But there is no thing as karma, okay? Get over that. Whoopi attacks me on a regular basis. She says stupid on a regular basis. It just happened to coincide. But can I just say this? I had on last week Ira Glasser, former longtime head of the ACLU, talking about free speech. Whoopi Goldberg, who, by the way, I hope is still a friend, we can disagree with each other, should not be canceled or put off her show, as much as I totally disagree with her crazy statement. Free speech.
And there it is. That's the clip. That's the moment. Bill Maher didn't just disagree with Whoopi Goldberg. He said out loud what many people have been thinking for years. She can say something wild, inflammatory, or even flat-out ridiculous and still be treated as if she is above criticism. But what makes the moment hit harder is that Maher isn't calling for her to be fired. He's actually doing the opposite. He's saying, keep her on the air. Let her talk. Just don't act as if bad arguments suddenly become wise simply because they are delivered with confidence on a daytime set. This whole clash matters because it's bigger than just one TV feud. It's about a style of political commentary that's taken over a lot of mainstream liberal media. Loud certainty, moral grandstanding, and his constant push to act like every debate already has one approved answer. Maher has been drifting into that critic of the left role for a while now. But when he goes after The View, he's not just taking shots at a talk show, he's pointing at a system. A system that turns overheated opinions into moral authority, then acts surprised when regular people stop buying into it. If you enjoy sharp breakdowns, media callouts, and commentary that directly addresses obviously bad takes, please hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Was Maher right to go so hard on Whoopi, or did he push it too far? Now let's rewind to the statement that set this whole thing off. Because Maher didn't just wake up one day and randomly go after Whoopi. He was reacting to a comparison that was always going to blow up the second people heard it.
What did you think of Whoopi Goldberg saying it's worse to be a black person in America today than a woman in Iran? I see we were talking about the trans issue before, and the New York Times really has come over on that to the sort of the sensible, liberal, not crazy woke position. I think this is a great first step toward getting the Democrats back to sanity. And a second good step would be, we got to do something about The View. I really believe that. I mean, could you just
it's huge in Iran, though.
That's a brutal setup, because Maher doesn't ease into it. He jumps straight from the question to the punchline, then widens it into a bigger critique. And honestly, it's easy to understand why a claim like saying black Americans have it worse than women in Iran might sound powerful within a studio bubble. It's dramatic and garners applause. But the moment it leaves that bubble, people start asking the most uncomfortable question in politics. Wait, seriously? And that's the core issue with outrage-driven television. Everything has to be escalated. Everything is framed in the most emotionally satisfying way for your side. And once you become used to talking like that, any sense of proportion disappears. You stop comparing real conditions, you start comparing feelings. Then Maher steps in with the kind of perspective that challenges that entire framing. Because once you move away from abstract language and look at real lives, real families, and the actual progress in America, the comparison starts to fall apart rather quickly.
Watching The View in Iran, all with the same head cover. You can't even tell which one is which.
My district in the great state of Texas is actually a white majority district that President Trump would have won by 25 points. As I said, I'm a direct descendant of a slave. My great-great-grandfather was born on a Rosedown plantation. I am literally being judged not by the color of my skin, but by the content of my character. That's the progress, because, like, a lot of white people had to vote for me. A lot.
So wait,
I don't even ever want to hear Whoopi Goldberg's conversation about how it's worse to be black in America right now. That's a bit far. And my father, who's 75 years old, he was a man that was in the French quarters that had to go get a sandwich to the back door of the building. And his son is now a United States congressman in a white majority district in Texas as a Republican. That is America. That's America.
And that right there is why Whoopi's argument landed so badly. Not because racism is gone and not because America is perfect, but because serious people can see the difference between an imperfect country and an openly repressive regime. Wesley Hunt's point resonates because it doesn't sound like a polished history lecture. It's personal. It's generational. His father lived in one version of America, and he lives in another. That doesn't mean the problems are gone. It means pretending there's been no real progress isn't honesty, it's performance. And that's what frustrates people. There's a big difference between criticizing America and flattening reality so much that you erase the progress earlier generations fought hard to achieve. When you do that, you're not honoring history, you're diminishing it. But this is where the conversation gets bigger, because Maher isn't just pushing back on one comment from Whoopi. He's challenging the broader worldview behind it. A worldview where identity categories become the main lens for understanding everything.
Juneteenth, that's a Texas holiday. It began in Texas in Galveston.
Galveston,
General
right?
Granger
Galveston,
came
Texas.
and read the order number 3 that finally abolished slavery months after the war because the war took a time to get to Galveston. We celebrated that when I was a kid in Texas, but it becomes national a year or two ago, and Donald Trump doesn't want to celebrate that. To me, it's exactly what you're talking about.
So,
is it 600,000 people died so that we wouldn't enslave people anymore, and the fact that freedom won is a good thing, and we should honor that. That's what Juneteenth's about. And I don't know why President Trump doesn't want to honor that.
So I don't want it. I don't want Black History Month. I don't want all these days for it to make everybody feel special. I'm an 80s baby. Everybody's too sensitive anyway. We're all Americans anyway. This holiday
That's what Morgan Freeman said.
Morgan Freeman,
said,
I can't agree more with him.
Yeah, he said that to Mike Wallace. He said, I'm an American. Do you want to be called a Jew American, Mike?
No.
Now this is where people start to split, because honoring history matters, remembering what happened matters, recognizing real injustices matters. But Maher's argument is that somewhere along the way, remembrance turned into branding. Commemoration turned into sorting people into smaller and smaller boxes. And once politics becomes all about categorizing people, it gets harder to build any shared identity at all. That's why this debate keeps coming back. One side hears we're all Americans and thinks, finally, something that brings people together. The other hears it and worries that history is being brushed aside. That's a fair concern. But Maher's point is that you can remember history without making division your default framework. And honestly, that's not some fringe take. A lot of people feel that way. Then the conversation loosens up, gets a little funnier, and somehow more revealing. Because underneath the jokes is the real tension. How much of modern politics has turned into a kind of ritual, where signaling identity matters more than actually solving problems?
White people celebrate Juneteenth too, and non-Italians celebrate Columbus Day. And
I'm all for any holiday.
I'm half Irish. Do I get half the day off on St. Patrick's Day?
But a lot of
I get half drunk.
everybody gets like on St. Patrick's Day. That's a good point.
Did you have a question for the congressman there?
No, are you telling me you're black?
Yes.
You don't see color, right, Dave?
That exchange lands because everyone already knows the script. We all recognize the approved lines. We're told to see color, but not too much. Acknowledge identity, but don't lean on it too heavily. Be inclusive while constantly tracking categories at the same time. It's exhausting. Regular people are tired of sounding like HR departments with ring lights. And that's exactly what Maher keeps pushing back on. He's basically asking, can we stop acting like every conversation needs to start with a full identity checklist? Can we stop making identity the headline of every interaction? Because the more elite media leans into that framework, the more out of touch it can sound to people who just want competence, fairness, and a bit of common sense. From there, Maher shifts away from just Whoopi and takes aim at the broader political culture that keeps producing these moments. And this is where his critique really sharpens.
Finally, new rule. Someone must tell the usual suspects on the far left that the saying is, when you're in a hole, stop digging, not keep digging. Talk about doubling down on what got you in the first place. Even the one concession I've heard a few people on the losing side offer, that liberals should stop saying the Trump voters are stupid, comes with a kind of unspoken parentheses. We know they are stupid, just don't say it. Yeah.
That's the arrogance piece. That's what turns a normal political disagreement into something deeper, a cultural rejection. Because people can feel it. They know when they're being talked down to. And one of Maher's biggest points here is that parts of the left still haven't learned that lesson. They think the issue is branding. He thinks the issue is attitude. You can't build a coalition while showing open disdain for half the country. You can't lose people, insult them, mock them, and then act surprised when they stop listening. That's not strategy, that's just self-satisfaction for smug pundits. And then he follows it up with one of the sharpest, most biting summaries of what he sees as left-wing absurdity that you'll hear on TV.
Yeah, I got bad news for you. They don't have a monopoly on stupid. You wear Queers for Palestine t-shirts and masks 2 years after the pandemic ended. And you can't define woman, I mean person who menstruates. You're the teachers' union education party, and you've turned schools and colleges into a joke. You just lost a crazy contest to an actual crazy person.
That's classic Maher, half roast, half political autopsy. And whether you agree with every line or not, you can see why it lands. He's arguing that the left often treats irrationality like it's only a right-wing issue, while ignoring its own blind spots. That's the line he keeps crossing. He doesn't let his own side act like it's above criticism. And that's exactly why The View ends up in his crosshairs. To him, it's not just a talk show, it's a symbol of that refusal to self-correct. The confidence never drops, the certainty never softens. Even when a take is hard to defend, the tone stays exactly the same. He drives that point home even harder when he starts talking about what Democratic voters themselves are beginning to push back on.
You love to speak truth to power, and we always should, but you have completely lost the ability to speak truth to bullshit. The Democratic polling firm Blueprint told Democrats months ago that black voters, aka their supposedly liberal base, were more likely to find the president too liberal than too conservative. They also found that voters didn't just want Harris to distance herself from Biden, they wanted her to distance herself from what they believe the entire Democratic Party has become, a Portlandia sketch.
The Portlandia sketch lands because everyone immediately understands the reference. Not liberal in the old school sense. Practical, grounded, and reality-based, but something more performative, more delicate, and so self-aware that it starts drifting away from reality. That's the image problem. And once that image sets in, every Whoopi moment stops feeling isolated. It doesn't just look like one bad take, it starts to feel like part of a larger pattern. That's why Maher's criticism connects with people. He's not just speaking to conservatives. He's also speaking to liberals and independents who are tired of being told that obvious nonsense should be treated like deep moral insight. And then, he brings it back to The View. And honestly, this might be the cleanest critique of the show in the entire segment.
But isn't it interesting that it's called, I mean, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's The View.
Well,
that's the problem in America.
But
there is one view,
right, and
one
that's clearly
true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner.
That's correct. I think that's not actually, you're right, the name raises questions, and certainly there's been some much covered internal politics on that show, but I do think that, you know, there is space. Even that show does have space. When Whoopi said what she said, there was quick pushback from other panelists. They were like, oh, I don't know. Actually, I think that might not be right.
And that's the contradiction in a single exchange. The show is called The View, singular and plural at the same time, supposedly representing many perspectives. But critics look at it and see a familiar pattern: broad ideological agreement, limited space for dissent, and a lot of emotional certainty presented as fearless truth-telling. Now, to be fair, the clip does show some pushback. That matters. But even that detail is revealing. The fact that disagreement stands out at all says something about what viewers have come to expect. When opposing views feel unusual, it reflects the overall atmosphere. And just to drive the point home, Maher and his guests circle back to the same theme again, this time with even less patience.
We can have platforms that have stuff on them that not everyone on that platform or who consumes stuff on that platform enjoys. And The View is a particularly weird place to do a cancellation.
It's called The View?
It's called The View. It's not called The Facts.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting that it's called, I mean, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's The View.
Well,
that's the problem in America.
But
there is one view,
right, and
one
that's clearly
true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner.
That line, "It's not called The Facts," captures the whole controversy in miniature. Because that's exactly how critics of The View see it. Not as a space where competing ideas are tested, but as a place where certain viewpoints get validated and reinforced. And once a show starts operating that way, it stops persuading and starts preaching. Preaching is fine if your audience already agrees with you. But if the goal is to reach undecided viewers or to present liberal ideas in a way that feels grounded and convincing, then that model becomes a problem. It ends up reinforcing the exact stereotypes Maher is talking about. At the end of the day, that's why his takedown hit so hard. He wasn't just reacting to one controversial comparison from Whoopi Goldberg. He was criticizing a broader style of media politics that treats emotional intensity as courage and disagreement as hostility. That's the deeper issue. The View isn't being criticized for having opinions. Every talk show has them. It's being criticized because some see it as blurring the line between opinion and moral authority, between outrage and truth. And when that happens, people tune out, not because they're afraid of tough conversations, but because they can tell when the conversation isn't really open anymore. Maher's point, whether you agree with him or not, is that the left does itself no favors by treating its most extreme voices as its most enlightened ones. So that's the question. Did Bill Maher finally say what needed to be said about Whoopi and The View? Or is this just another media pile-on? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed the breakdown, hit like and subscribe for more commentary, and I'll see you in the next one.